No drugs.
Like drinking?
I don't do none of that. I don't want no Miley, I don't want no Perk, I don't want no Surd, I don't want no Ciroc, I don't want no NJ, I don't want no 1800, I don't want no Kush.
The man accused of killing Mo3 has just gone on record, and what he said has everyone buzzing. "I know what I did." That came straight from Quandontrell White, the alleged triggerman behind Mo3's shocking murder on a Dallas freeway in broad daylight. But here's the twist. Now he's telling a completely different story. This revelation changes everything. The timing couldn't be more dramatic, and the details he revealed are jaw-dropping. It's time to break this down. Mo3's accused killer just made waves with new revelations. In recent days, the streets have been ablaze with talk about Mo3's murder and Yellow Beezy's alleged role in orchestrating it. But what many haven't fully grasped is the role of Quandontrell White, the man first charged with pulling the trigger. While awaiting trial, White received a 9-year federal gun sentence. You'd think that would be the end of his story, but no, he just delivered a jailhouse interview that's turning heads. "I didn't do it. They got the wrong man." That's what White said on camera with absolute conviction. No stuttering, no second guessing, just a calm, confident denial. Naturally, questions erupted. Was he framed? Could this be a case of mistaken identity? But White didn't stop there. He took it a step further, dissecting the entire case against him during the interview. The internet, of course, exploded. One commenter summed it up best. "Imagine being this man's attorney and seeing him give jailhouse interviews for a podcast. But let's not overlook that this man didn't just end up behind bars by chance. The feds came down hard on Quandontrell White, sentencing him to nearly 9 years in federal prison. Not for Mo3's murder, but for a gun charge. U.S. Attorney Chad Meacham from the Northern District of Texas confirmed that White pleaded guilty back in May to possessing a 9mm semi-automatic pistol as a convicted felon. There was no setup here. Police found the weapon right in his pants pocket. Here's what happened. On August 16, 2020, officers spotted White riding a dirt bike down West Pleasant Run Road in Lancaster, Texas. He broke a traffic law, so they hit the lights and sirens, signaling him to pull over. But White wasn't stopping. Instead, he took off, pushing the throttle and leading police on a chase. Eventually, he crashed the dirt bike and tried to flee on foot, but officers caught up with him. That's when they discovered the firearm. So while White serves his sentence for the gun charge, the murder case against him for Mo3's death is still hanging in the balance. Meanwhile, Yellow Beezy remains notably silent. White is speaking out from his jail cell, vehemently denying any involvement in Mo3's killing, but Beezy, real name Marquise DeAndre Conway, has kept quiet since his March 20th, 2025 arrest. Surveillance footage captured Beezy in handcuffs, calmly walking as if he'd been through it before. No blinking, no visible reaction, just a calm, measured demeanor as officers escorted him through the station. Once that footage hit the internet, it went viral. But while everyone was waiting for Beezy to break his silence, his attorney, Toby Shook, handed TMZ a statement that felt like standard PR, offering no real answers and leaving the public guessing. After securing bond, Beezy kept his statement brief. He felt relieved to be released. No denials, no mentions of Mo3, just relief. But the details surrounding his arrest quickly stirred up debate. This wasn't just about an open case. Beezy had been indicted by a Dallas County grand jury just 2 days earlier on a charge of capital murder while remuneration. In plain terms, the state alleged that Beezy paid to have Mo3 killed, a planned, calculated hit, not a crime of passion. When the bond hearing rolled around, the state set his bond at a staggering $2 million. Beezy's team argued it was unaffordable. That's when his family stepped up, with his grandmother Alma Jean Alexander delivering a heartfelt statement that momentarily shifted the courtroom's focus. But the prosecutors were ready to counter. They brought hard evidence, bank records from 2020 showing Beezy had nearly $870,000 across multiple accounts. They claimed he drove a bulletproof Denali and pointed to a $40,000 cash withdrawal made just days after Mo3's murder. Prosecutor Tommy Adams presented this as a smoking gun, alleging it was part of the payment for the killing. Adams even said a witness would testify that Beezy helped pay for the hit, arguing that the timing and amount of the withdrawal were no coincidence. Beezy's defense team fired back. They claimed the prosecution's case lacked substance. No texts, no social media messages, no bank receipts showing an exchange of money. Instead, they said, the state was relying on one person's claim of overhearing a conversation. They argued, there's no solid evidence, no messages, no documented handoffs, just one individual's word. The defense and prosecution had gone back and forth, but then Judge Gracie Lewis made a decision that took everyone by surprise. She lowered Beezy's bond from $2 million to $750,000, but not without making a statement. She called him out on his financial declaration, accusing him of not taking it seriously. He didn't seem to take that very seriously at all, Judge Lewis noted, adding, and that's what I'm worried about, whether or not he's taking the charges against him seriously. She followed up with a sharp warning, leaving no room for misinterpretation. Yes, Beezy walked out on bond, but that courtroom exchange wasn't about celebrating his freedom. It was a clear signal to take this case seriously. Online reactions poured in. Some argued, he's a rapper, that $40K could have been for anything. Others pointed out that the case seemed to hinge on a single witness who may or may not have been the shooter, calling the evidence shaky at best. Then came the discussion of the bond reduction itself. From $2 million to $750K in under a week? That's impressive, commented one user. Others suggested Beezy might beat the case entirely, noting, this man isn't worried at all, he's far from broke. There were side-by-side comparisons with other cases. Tory couldn't get a bond in a case where nobody died, said one commenter, but Beezy, who's accused of murder, walked. People weren't just commenting, they were dissecting the system. Some viewed the bond reduction as privilege, others as a testament to Beezy's influence. But amidst the noise, a critical detail from the courtroom slipped through the cracks. The judge admitted the state's case looked thin. She lowered the bond partially because there wasn't much evidence, no solid paper trail, no digital proof, just one unsteady witness. Still, she warned Beezy not to intimidate anyone involved in the case. That's the part many people missed. It wasn't just about Beezy's freedom, it was a clue that the prosecution's case might not be as airtight as it seemed. And then the final punch, a single tweet that made everyone stop scrolling. Some online claimed it was Big U who quietly put up Beezy's bond. Even if it was just a joke, it stuck because Big U's name always carries weight. He's no stranger to helping rappers, not just in their music careers, but in their legal battles too. Big U knows people and has been operating behind the scenes for years. If someone needed a $750,000 bond posted without too much fanfare, Big U would be on that short list. He's known for respecting street loyalty, and Beezy is from Oak Cliff, a connection that runs deep. For some, the bond money started to look like more than just cash. It seemed like it might be part of a larger code of silence, keeping bigger names out of the spotlight. So now Beezy's out, not saying much, but MO3 is gone, gunned down on a freeway in broad daylight. While Beezy walks free on bond, MO3 never made it out of that fateful chase. The entire situation was already tense, but then, just hours after the bond reduction, a new layer of confusion hit. College Kid unearthed old studio footage showing MO3 and Beezy in the same room. No drama, no beef. Just two Dallas rappers laughing and recording, shoulder to shoulder like everything was cool. For anyone watching that clip, the narrative shifted. Maybe they weren't enemies, or maybe the beef wasn't as clear-cut as people thought. But then, the chilling freeway footage brought everything back into sharp focus. MO3's car stalled on I-35 in the middle of traffic. He jumped out, dodging between lanes as if running from something deadly. A man followed him with a gun, and within seconds it was all over. MO3 was shot and killed right there, in broad daylight in front of everyone. The internet erupted into debates. Some claimed MO3's car had been hit by bullets. Others thought his tires were shot out. The theories only added to the chaos, with some saying the whole thing felt like a calculated setup. The evidence started to stack up. Phone records revealed a flurry of calls between Beezy and Quan White. They'd been in constant contact, not just before the murder, but on the day of the shooting. Cell tower pings placed them near MO3's location that night. The trail was starting to look less like coincidence and more like a plan. Not long after, prosecutors made their stance crystal clear. This wasn't just some neighborhood beef. It was a calculated hit. They claimed Beasy called the shots, funded the plan, and set it all in motion. The phone calls, the cash withdrawals, and the carefully chosen location all pointed in one direction, but just when the public thought they had the story pinned down, another twist surfaced. This time, it involved a woman. Reports swirled after the Shade Room revealed that MO3 had left a woman's house that morning. Allegedly, he'd sensed something was off. He felt like he was being followed. To confirm his suspicions, he stopped at a gas station hoping the car trailing him would back off. It didn't. Instead, the car stayed close, and MO3, now on edge, jumped back onto I-35 to try and lose it. That's when the chase unfolded. The crash, the desperate sprint, the final gunshot. TMZ later confirmed that after the collision, MO3 exited his vehicle and attempted to flee on foot. Tragically, he was shot in the back of the head, ending the chase in a moment that froze the internet. The identity of the woman he visited was never officially released, but that didn't stop fans from speculating. Many believed she had connections to Beasy's circle. There was no proof, but the deafening silence from all parties left room for rumors to grow. Then Beasy finally broke his silence. Sitting down with the lamp channel, he kept his words measured, calm, and unnervingly cold. "Certain things need to be addressed, certain don't," he said. "Stop attaching me to all that because it ain't got nothing to do with me." His tone was steady, his expression firm, as if he'd been waiting for the moment to make that statement. Yet his brief response only fueled more questions. Instead of quelling the rumors, it made people dig deeper. The blogs ran wild with speculation. Beasy was already in jail, and his face dominated the headlines. But the bigger question remained unanswered. How did this all start? This wasn't just one isolated fight. It wasn't sparked by a single diss track. The tension between MO3 and Beasy had been brewing, escalating over time until it exploded into tragedy. They both came from Oak Cliff, the same tough neighborhood in Dallas, where repping the block carries real weight. In Oak Cliff, you're either respected or you're tested, no middle ground. The tension between MO3 and Beasy didn't erupt overnight. It simmered, fueled by pride, loyalty, and street politics until it boiled over in 2017. That's when comedian Roy Lee, a close friend of MO3, started throwing shade at Beasy. He questioned Beasy's street credentials, publicly doubting if Beasy truly represented Oak Cliff. Roy chose a side, and it wasn't Beasy's. Then came the violence. On September 25th, 2018, Roy Lee was shot in a North Dallas parking lot. He survived the initial attack, but weeks later, on October 13th, a blood clot linked to the gunshot wound took his life. The very next day, October 14th, Beasy himself was targeted in a drive-by shooting in Louisville. He took 8 bullets and lived. The timing was impossible to ignore. It felt like retaliation, a message sent in blood. MO3 didn't stay silent. Instead of picking up a gun, he fired back through his music. In 2019, he dropped blunt diss tracks with no veiled lyrics or subtle jabs. One of those tracks, 219, came out on Roy Lee's birthday, directly blaming Beasy for Roy Lee's death. Twitter picked it up quickly. A now famous tweet laid it out clearly. The MO3 and Yellow Beasy feud turned deadly after Beasy ducked a fade from MO3's friend Roy Lee. Lee was later killed, setting off a chain of incidents in the city. Online forums like Reddit also began piecing things together. One user wrote, "Yeah, I know MO3's head started getting big, and he was talking a lot on social media. Just didn't know if it was 100% that got him killed." What had started as a clash of egos was now being painted as a series of real-life conflicts, with lives lost and grudges that ran deeper than the music. By the time 2024 rolled around, Beasy made an appearance on Can I Vent? The question everyone had waited for finally came. What was the point of all the drama? Beasy shrugged at first, but then got personal. He claimed MO3 was jealous, bitter about Beasy's rise to success. It wasn't just about rap anymore. It felt like there was real hatred behind the bars, a long-standing grudge that shaped their music and their lives. But just as Beezy seemed to be opening up, he changed his tone again. In a later interview, his story shifted, leaving fans and critics alike scrambling to figure out what was real and what was just a narrative. The Oak Cliff tension that had sparked so much controversy wasn't just a matter of lyrics, it was a clash of pride, loyalty, and the kind of street politics that never really fades. When Beezy got asked if he and Mo3 ever had real beef, his response was almost nonchalant. He said, as if it were no big deal. The tone switch was unmistakable. At first, it was all about Mo3 being bitter, but now Beezy acted like there was never any tension. One moment it was real animosity, the next, everything seemed fine. The back and forth kept people guessing, but then Beezy did something no one saw coming. He gave Mo3 a rare moment of public respect. It was almost shocking to hear. Beezy actually spoke highly of Mo3, acknowledging his impact on the city. There were no jabs, no sarcasm, just a straightforward acknowledgement. It was probably the only time Beezy publicly praised Mo3 without any shade, and it caught fans completely off guard. But Mo3 wasn't one to hold back either. Right after Beezy's 2018 shooting, when people pressed him for his thoughts, Mo3 stayed raw and direct. "It's the world," he said. No fake concern, no staged sympathy, just Mo3's unfiltered, candid energy. He didn't pretend to care. Later, he addressed the rumors swirling around their so-called feud, claiming it wasn't real at all. According to him, the beef wasn't rooted in street issues, it was just talk stirred up by outsiders. Still, the music told a different story. Diss tracks, shady lines, Instagram posts, lawsuits, interviews, whatever you called it, it definitely felt like beef. Even as fans debated the origins of the drama, Beezy's name started showing up in places far removed from music. His rap sheet kept growing, stacking arrests like he was dropping mixtapes. His legal troubles became their own narrative. It started on Valentine's Day 2021, when Beezy was arrested in Dallas for unlawful possession of a firearm. He was out the same day, but it was the first sign that legal issues were sticking to him. Then, in August 2021, came more trouble, this time for drug and weapon charges. The details were murky, no one said what kind of drug or weapon, but the arrest alone kept Beezy's name in the conversation. By then, his reputation was starting to feel sticky, and then the big one hit in November. On November 5th, 2021, Beezy was arrested again, this time in Plano, Texas. This time, the headlines exploded. The charge was sexual assault with a weapons charge tacked on. It wasn't just news, it was a frenzy. Beezy's name splashed across blogs, tweets, and Instagram feeds for weeks, but by June 2022, the case was dismissed. No conviction, no follow-through. The charges didn't stick, but the damage was done. The mugshot lingered longer than the truth. Then came July 2024, and a new storm brewed. Not a criminal charge, but a civil lawsuit. It wasn't jail this time, it was court. 4 men in Harris County filed suit against Chris Brown's crew after claiming they were jumped at a VIP event at Dickies Arena in Fort Worth. And whose name popped up alongside Brown's? Yellow Beezy's. Beezy's lawyer quickly shot down the allegations, telling the Shade Room, "Yellow Beezy was not involved in any incident. He had no contact with the plaintiffs and does not understand why he's even named in this lawsuit." But the damage was done. Another mark on the record, whether he had anything to do with it or not. By this point, the list of allegations against Beezy was starting to feel endless. Guns, assaults, lawsuits, and now murder. Cases might come and go, but the public memory clings to the sensational, not the resolution. At a certain point, people stop calling it bad luck. They start calling it a pattern. But to fully understand how Beezy ended up here, you have to rewind. Before the courtrooms, before the chains, before the fame, he was Marquise Conway, a kid from Oak Cliff, trying to find his way. Life didn't hand him an easy start. At just 12 years old, Beezy lost his father to violence. It was Mother's Day when his dad was shot and killed at home, a traumatic moment that never really fades. As a kid, Conway had dreams of a different life. He loved sports, football, basketball, and for a time those dreams felt like a way out. Maybe he'd make it big, maybe he'd go pro. But life in Oak Cliff wasn't forgiving, and those childhood dreams didn't always get the chance to grow. In his teenage years, Beezy's dreams took a back seat. He joined the Crips, not for status or clout, but out of necessity. Survival dictated his choices. He needed money to get by, so he dealt drugs. It wasn't about chasing a narrative, it was the reality of his life. When you look at everything that followed, the arrests, the charges, the gang connections, it wasn't random. It followed a familiar pattern, one we've seen time and again, especially in places like Oak Cliff, where gang life often doesn't vanish after a hit single. Instead, it becomes part of your story, following you even as you rise. Beezy's ties to the Crips were never hidden. He wore it openly, representing his set in the same vein as others before him. Snoop Dogg famously repped the blue flag. Nipsey Hussle carried it as a badge of honor. Blueface flaunts it on social media, and Quando Rondo lived it so deeply it became a central theme of his music and his troubles. For some, those affiliations help them climb the ladder. For others, they become a weight that drags them back down. Take Chef G, for instance. He blew up on Brooklyn's drill scene with tracks climbing the charts. But behind the music, prosecutors painted him as a gang leader who funded violent hits and celebrated shootings. His success couldn't shield him from the consequences. A 140-count indictment landed him in prison despite his musical achievements. Then there's Quando Rondo, a rising star who now serves a 33-month federal sentence tied to drugs, weapons, and his association with the Rollin' 60s. Even as his fan base grew, headlines about shootings and alleged gang violence trailed him everywhere he went. And then there's Big U, a known figure in Los Angeles' Rollin' 60s Crips. Not a rapper, but a powerful name. For years, he ran community programs and spoke at schools, presenting himself as a mentor. But the federal government later accused him of far more sinister activities, hitting him with a RICO case. The charges alleged extortion, fraud, even murder. What appeared to be community outreach was described by prosecutors as more of a criminal empire, something closer to organized crime than mentorship. So when Beezy's name surfaced in connection with a capital murder charge, people didn't flinch. It fit the narrative, the cycle of pain, survival, success, and the difficulty of leaving the street life behind. The music might have taken him out of the neighborhood, but it didn't erase the ties that bound him to it. Sometimes the past doesn't just follow, it clings. Yellow Beezy's legal troubles haven't been random. They've painted a narrative. The 2021 gun charge, the drug bust, the high-profile sexual assault case that was ultimately dismissed, and the 2024 lawsuit claiming Beezy had a hand in an alleged backstage altercation at a Chris Brown show. Even when the charges don't stick, they still leave scars on a reputation, adding to a bigger picture that people can't ignore. For many rappers tied to Crip culture, the pattern feels familiar. They reach success, gain wealth, and even try to move on, but the ties to the streets never fully loosen. Sometimes the people around them don't grow with them, and the law never stops watching. So when the murder-for-hire allegations against Beezy surfaced, the reaction wasn't shock. Instead, people asked the inevitable, who's next? In this world, the fall always seems just around the corner. And now, with Quan White's new jailhouse interviews shaking the narrative, there's another pressing question. Could these revelations turn the tide for Beezy? Could this latest twist in the story redefine what happens next?